A city called Geiranger is located in Norway, has many waterways that cross many mountains. This area experienced a great tsunami disaster due to the collapse of mountain rocks. Until finally the tsunami will hit the cities under the mountain. This man is named Christian. A family man who returned from the city across to visit his children and wife, his daughter named Julia, his son named Sandra, and his wife named Aiden. Christian came from the next city because he got an interview call to work at a gas factory, and he was accepted. Previously, Christian worked at a water monitoring center located 100 meters above the water surface in the city. He went there to inform him that he was accepted in a new place. He celebrated his move with his coworkers. Christian had been with them for years. Arvid as a senior will continue Christian's struggle there. But when Christian was packing, he heard a small alarm sound from the monitoring and control room. There was a small movement on the mountain, but Arvid said that everything would be fine and told him to go home and rest. Because Christian got a new job in another city, in the end they will move too. Sandra actually comfortable living their peaceful atmosphere and hard to forget. Besides that, Christian also has neighbors who are always nice to him. They are Tomas and Anna. They want to say goodbye to them. Christian and his 2 children will leave first while Aiden is still working. Aiden works at a hotel, and at that time there were many tourists staying. But in the middle of the trip, Christian was still thinking about what happened at the control center earlier. In the end, he turned back and went to his old office, then left his 2 children for a while. Christian was sure that the shift was not something to be underestimated. This had happened before. There was a movement of land until the mountain rocks fell into the water and created a very powerful tsunami. It could happen again and should not be underestimated. At least they checked the sensors on the mountain plate. Christian and his colleague named Jacob finally headed to the plate. The mountain plate looked like there were lots of sensors and supports to hold it so that the fracture could be held. At first it looked fine, but it turned out that the sensor cable was damaged. This is very dangerous. All this time they didn't know this was happening and just kept quiet. Christian asked Arvid to warn people to evacuate immediately. But unfortunately, Christian no longer has the right to control them. He is free from this responsibility. In the end, Christian left there, and when he returned, his children had disappeared. It turned out they went to the hotel to visit their mother. Because they were gone for too long. Aiden warned Christian not to let this happen again. It would be dangerous to leave the children alone in the car. Then Sandra also decided to stay with his mother for the time being, especially since they had missed the ship. Like it or not, they have to travel the next morning. Sandra stays at the hotel with his mother while Christian returns home with Julia. Even so, Christian is still thinking and not calm. That night Sandra should have slept, but instead he went and found a basement to play skateboard while listening to music. While on the other hand, Christian's colleague named Margot is in charge of monitoring the monitor room, and there are indications of danger. She just realized when she spilled the drink. Margot asked Arvid to check the plate, because the sensor showed something strange. It turned out that the crack was realized by Christian. He tried to call the control center, but they only said it was a minor problem. Arvid and Jacob were checking the condition. Initially Christian believed it, but when he saw many birds flying above his head, it indicated that there would be a very big disaster. Christian called his colleague again to immediately leave the plate because it would be dangerous. And what Christian feared finally happened. The plate shifted until it made the rocks around Jacob and Arvid fall. The situation is getting more critical. Christian asks his colleague to press the emergency warning button for residents. At the same time, the mountain plate finally collapses and drags Arvid into it. From here, a tsunami will form. They only have about 10 minutes. Everyone, including Aiden, tries to save the people in the hotel. Christian calls Aiden to meet in a high place, but Christian is trapped. The vehicle is stuck until finally he decides to run with Julia. He invites people to leave their cars and immediately go up to a high place. Meanwhile, Aiden tells people to immediately get on the bus and leave there. but Sandra has not been found. Aiden has no choice but to go back and look for Sandra. One of the hotel guests named Philip and Maria helps. At first Philip didn't want to but was forced by Maria. On the other hand, the tsunami is getting closer to Christian. He sees Anna trapped by a car. What should he do? He asks Tomas to take Julia up the hill first. Christian will help Anna, but they won't have time to escape. So he and Anna got into the car and prayed. The tsunami hit them very hard. Same as Aiden, she managed to find Sandra in the basement, but they didn't have time. Aiden asked them to go back and go into the basement. Marion didn't survive while Aiden, Philip and Sandra managed to get in, but the water also came in. On the other hand, Christian managed to survive the tsunami. Unfortunately, Teresa didn't survive. Christian went to the people gathered and looked for Julia, while Tomas had to grieve the loss of his wife. Now Christian had to make sure Aiden and Sandra were safe. On the other hand, Aiden, Sandra and Philip had to survive because the water came in faster than expected. The exit door also couldn't be opened because there was something blocking it. Christian started looking for Diane and Sandra's whereabouts. He found a bus leaving from the hotel, but unfortunately all the passengers were not safe. The only place he had to check was the hotel. Meanwhile, Aiden and Sandra had serious problems. Philip, who was not strong enough to float in the water, leaned on Sandra, and that made Sandra difficult. Until finally Aiden did something reckless. She drowned Philip back. She was forced to do that. Christian entered the hotel and found Sandra's bag near the basement door. He thought they were not safe. Because he was annoyed, Christian hit the pipe near him until Aiden and Sandra heard. Here they were sure that there was someone else who could help them. Then they hit the pipe back so that Christian could hear. Christian accepted the feedback and rushed to save them. With a long breath, Christian entered the water and opened the basement door. Finally, he met Aiden. Aiden managed to get out. Now Christian had to guide Sandra. But at that time, Sandra ran out of air. Christian gave the air he had stored from his mouth to Sandra, but he had to sacrifice himself. Aiden felt something was wrong. Then he pulled Christian to the surface. Aiden tried his best to bring Christian back, but there was no movement. Sandra didn't want to lose his father, so he gave his best until Christian regained consciousness. They returned to Julia. They were one of the lucky ones out of the many victims. That was the storyline of the film The Wave. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and see you.